In the past few days, the United States has witnessed an unfolding sequence of extreme weather events that have left communities devastated, families torn apart, and historic sites reduced to ash as torrential rains pounded the northeastern states. Particularly Massachusetts and New York, flash floods surged through streets, homes and transportation routes, washing away cars, trapping people in basements, and causing multiple fatalities. Local emergency services struggled to keep up with distress calls as rivers overflowed and entire neighborhoods went underwater. The intensity of the rainfall caught many residents off guard, turning normal suburban roads into violent rivers within minutes. Authorities in Massachusetts declared a state of emergency in several counties, as the National Guard was deployed to assist in water rescues, evacuation procedures, and infrastructure control. The destruction in Massachusetts was widespread from urban areas like Worcester and Lowell to more rural towns like Deerfield and Orange. Floodwaters surged into schools, hospitals, and senior care centers, forcing emergency evacuations and putting countless lives at risk. Residents described the horror of watching their homes fill with muddy water as they scrambled to save pets' documents and family mementos. Some neighborhoods were completely cut off from emergency access, with washed-out bridges and collapsed roads, making it nearly impossible for rescuers to reach the stranded in the city of Springfield. A local shelter was overwhelmed as hundreds of flood victims poured in seeking dry clothing, food, and temporary beds, while volunteers and aid workers worked tirelessly around the clock. Meanwhile, in neighboring states like Vermont and New Hampshire, flood warnings continued to spread as storm systems hovered over the region, dropping inches of rain per hour. Rivers such as the Connecticut River and the Merrimack reached levels not seen in decades, overflowing their banks and inundating low-lying towns across the region, while families in the Northeast were struggling to cope with flooding. A completely different catastrophe was unfolding in the Southwest, where wildfires had erupted with terrifying speed and ferocity. Arizona in particular became the focal point of the western infernos, as high winds, dry air, and excessive heat combined to form a deadly mix that led to multiple fires racing across forests, national parks, and residential areas. One of the most heartbreaking losses was the historic Grand Canyon Lodge, a beloved landmark that had stood for decades on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, offering generations of visitors a stunning view of one of the world's greatest natural wonders. Within hours, the lodge was consumed by flames as fire crews were forced to retreat due to unpredictable winds and exploding fire lines. Tourists visiting the canyon were hurriedly evacuated, while staff and rangers did their best to protect lives and lead visitors away from danger. Aerial footage showed the iconic lodge collapsing into smoldering rubble, its timber beams reduced to glowing embers and thick black smoke rising into the sky. Firefighters described the situation as one of the most dangerous and fast-moving fires they had ever encountered, driven by winds reaching speeds over 45 miles per hour. The fire jumped containment lines and threatened to merge with other smaller wildfires nearby, creating the risk of a megafire that could endanger even more national park areas. In response, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs issued emergency declarations while requesting federal disaster assistance and mobilizing every available firefighting crew in the region. Hundreds of residents in nearby towns like Fredonia and Jacob Lake were told to evacuate immediately, leaving behind homes, livestock, and possessions, with little more than a few minutes' warning as evacuation orders spread. So did confusion, with many families uncertain of where to go, as shelters quickly filled and some roads became impassable due to fire and smoke. Visibility plummeted in affected regions, making both ground and air operations more dangerous and forcing helicopters to abort water drops as nighttime conditions worsened across the United States. This 1-2 punch of climate disasters is raising serious questions about preparedness, infrastructure, and response capabilities in the age of global warming. Scientists and climate experts have long warned that the warming planet will lead to more frequent and more intense weather events, and this week provided a devastating snapshot of what that future looks like. From the torrential flooding in the Northeast to the infernal fires of the Southwest American communities are being tested like never before, and as insurance companies reassess risk zones, many families now face the reality that their homes may not be protected in the future, and Boston city officials acknowledged that. Aging stormwater infrastructure was a major factor in the extent of flood damage, noting that systems designed decades ago simply cannot handle the volume and velocity of rain seen in recent storms. Similarly, in Arizona, climate experts are pointing to the megadrought that has gripped the Southwest for over 20 years, which has dried out vegetation and created vast amounts of fuel for wildfires. As towns burn and riverbanks burst, emergency management teams are scrambling to keep pace with shifting disasters, while nonprofit organizations, faith groups, and ordinary citizens step up to help their neighbors, from delivering meals and water to the displaced to providing shelter for animals left behind. Stories of heroism and resilience are beginning to emerge in the chaos, such as the nurse in western Massachusetts who carried elderly patients on her back to safety as water flooded their nursing home, or the Arizona park ranger who guided a group of foreign tourists down an alternate canyon trail to escape the encroaching wildfire. While these stories inspire hope, they also highlight the growing burden placed on individuals and small communities, who are often the first to respond in emergencies. This week has left a deep scar on the national psyche, and as recovery begins, officials warn that the dangers are far from over. Additional storms are forecast in the Northeast, and fire conditions in the West remain critical, with new fire ignitions reported in Colorado and southern Utah, adding pressure to an already stretched national firefighting force. FEMA has deployed regional task forces and prepositioned supplies in vulnerable areas, but the scale and variety of disasters across the nation have made logistics challenging and time-sensitive. Meanwhile, on social media and national news platforms, images and video clips of submerged highways, burning cabins, and sobbing survivors have gone viral, sparking an outpouring of public support, but also increasing public scrutiny over the role of government and corporate responsibility in environmental policy and disaster readiness. As the smoke settles in Arizona and the waters begin to recede in Massachusetts, the road to recovery is just beginning and will likely take months, if not years. The loss of life, property, and cultural heritage will be felt across generations, and experts are urging the public to take stock of the situation, not just as isolated events, but as part of a disturbing trend that demands immediate attention and long-term investment, whether in the form of climate-resilient infrastructure, better evacuation systems, or updated building codes. The need for action has never been clearer, and yet as Congress debates funding bills and regulatory reforms, many Americans are left wondering whether their leaders are ready to face the new era of climate disasters unfolding across the country.